Wow, stories.
I just had the worst 48 hours of my life. So I moved to a different state about 5 years ago, but I still come back to my hometown regularly to visit family and friends. Depending on the duration of my trip, I'll only make plans with certain people. So my main focus this time around was one of my oldest friends, Jen. Jen and her boyfriend have been together for around 2 years now. They have their struggles, but for the most part, I have never seen her as happy in a relationship as she is with him. Not to sound narcissistic, but I am a fairly attractive woman, and I date other women almost exclusively. So I will actively make it a point to let others know that I want nothing to do with their men. As rude as it sounds, I won't even make eye contact with another girl's boyfriend to avoid any kind of confrontation. Jen, however, doesn't have many friends. So if she's not at work, she's with him 100% of the time. As a result, she wanted the two of us to meet and be able to hang out together as some kind of trio. So she planned a 2-day trip to Disney. Right off the bat, nothing about this scenario was ideal for me. I will always put manners first, but I had no intentions of being his friend. Not only because of my rule against it, but he's just not my type of person. 2 days was also taking a significant part of the trip since it didn't include drive time. Not to mention I've had a lifelong hatred for Disney. She was so excited when she was planning it that I couldn't tell her no. But I also have a mild mood regulation problem, so it was hard to hide my disdain. Especially after I found out that we were sharing a room in our Airbnb, which we were also sharing with 7 other people. Jen and her boyfriend, I'll call him Cal, let me know quiet time was at 10 and left to go see a movie as soon as we got to the Airbnb. Our neighbors continued to be loud until 3 a.m. So at this point, I was thoroughly pissed off. And all I really wanted to do was smoke some Zaza. I also regularly bring edibles for her to take when I travel since she doesn't like smoking. I gave her a full pack's worth of several kinds of edibles, and by the trip, she only had 2 left. So when Cal texted me asking for some, I assumed he was saving the other ones for her. I feel like a plug whenever I'm around them. So I treated this like a business interaction, even though it weirded me out that he didn't just ask me verbally. He waited until she was in the shower around 11 p.m., then only took male 5 of a chocolate piece and handed me the other half. I'm a very heavy daily smoker, so I felt nothing, and really only took it so he wouldn't throw it away. I have no idea why, but he didn't seem to want her to take any. I haven't slept well since my vacation started, so I was awake literally all night. At around 3 a.m., he texted me again asking me if I was okay. I was less weirded out by this because she was asleep, and neither of us wanted to risk waking her up, and I told him I just couldn't sleep. He said he wanted to go do something, but didn't know what. So I suggested we go for a walk since I had been wanting to check out the neighborhood and was too scared to go alone. I left the room before him because he hadn't even gotten up and waited on the porch for a minute. I thought he was just dragging behind, but now I think he was trying to make sure she was still asleep and wouldn't notice both of us gone. We only made it about 3 houses down before he started getting weird. He told me to feel his hand because he didn't feel real, and when I did, he laced his fingers between mine and wouldn't let go until I shook my whole arm to get him off. I was already really uncomfortable at that point, and I tried to politely shut him down by reminding him that his girlfriend is my best friend, and I would never do something like what he was suggesting. He said, okay, and I started walking back to the house when he grabbed me by the throat, shoved me into a tree, and kissed me. His other hand was trying to get up my shorts, so I shoved him off me and told him to stop. He said okay again, and we walked in silence back to the house. I didn't want to go into our room because I was nervous, so I went to the kitchen and got some water when he followed me and did it a second time. This time, he pushed me up against the wall of our room, and I hit him in a moment of panic. Not hard, just a slap at best. But I told him it's not happening and went back to my bed. He continued to text me in bed next to her, saying all kinds of inappropriate things, and when I wouldn't respond, he would sit up and stare at me from their bed. The only replies I would give were very pointed ones, trying to politely shake him off. At one point, he tried to lean down and kiss me again, but I put my head under the blankets and pretended not to notice. The final straw of the night was when he started begging me to make out with him so he would go to sleep. It was already 6 o'clock in the morning at that point. So I just closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep until I eventually did fall asleep. We had to leave early the next morning to get into the park. So I had asked Jen to wake me up when they were ready. She tried, but I was so tired from that night I just rolled over and fell asleep again. Then he tried by touching my neck, and that woke me right the frick up. I went to smack his hand away, and I was instantly put in a bad mood. He didn't try anything for the rest of the day at the park, likely because Jen was around. So eventually the mood lightened, and we all started having fun. On the ride back, I was getting nervous because I was scared he was going to try something again that night. And I guess I was putting out bad energy because they both kept asking me if I was okay. I had gone completely nonverbal for a while, and I think it annoyed Jen because they left again. But I didn't get an invitation this time. He forgot his wallet in the room and came back for it. When he went to leave again, he said, "I'll be right back, baby girl," and tried to hug me. I pushed him away and said nothing when he asked if I was okay. I have what I would describe as high-functioning anxiety. No matter how bad it gets, I'm usually able to push it down and do what I need to do. But as soon as they left, I called another one of my friends, Tia, and just completely broke down. She eventually managed to distract me enough to relax until they got back, at which point I hung up so they wouldn't hear us talking. When they got back, I was curled up facing the wall, so they started to unwind for the night. Jen went to get changed in the bathroom, and he sat on the end of my bed watching the TV. But the texts immediately started up again. He asked me for more edibles, but there was no chance I'm ever giving him any again after the shoot he pulled. Especially because I feel like he was using being high as an excuse to try shoot with me. So I told him to ask Jen because I knew he wouldn't. I started shaking and could feel the panic setting in. So I texted Tia again, and she FaceTimed me, so I would have an excuse to leave. Jen was already back in the room, and he still wouldn't move from my bed. So I sat up, asked her about the smoking policy, and was met with a straight attitude. I was already wildly upset at that point, so I snapped at her and left the room. Tia heard it all on the phone and tried helping me come up with a plan to tell her. But her only solution was to tell Jen immediately and kick him out of the Airbnb and get an Uber home. Maybe it was selfish, but I wasn't going to do that. We had a 2-hour ride awaiting us the next day, and our room was quite small. Plus, I had no desire to be around when they had that conversation. I went back to the room and saw them cuddling in bed, and it just made me sick to my stomach. So I collected my paraphernalia and went for a walk while I smoked. It was pouring rain, and my phone was starting to lose connection on FaceTime, so I wasn't out long. He tried texting me a few more times before I outright told him I'm not interested and to stop. He tried to play it off like he wasn't doing anything wrong, and I ignored him for the rest of the night. I didn't even care about the staring anymore. I was just angry. Now for an update. He begged me not to tell her, but I absolutely am. I just don't know how. I'm terrified of her reaction, and I will do just about anything to avoid conflict. I'm afraid she's going to blame me and stay with him, or if they break up and she still blames me. I've already come to terms with the fact that I can't be her friend anymore if she stays with him. It just breaks my heart because she seems to be so genuinely happy. Any and all advice is appreciated. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Invite her out and tell her directly while he isn't present. Show her the texts and go through the timeline. He will deny it and paint you as the villain. So I would talk about that ahead of time with her to prepare against the foreseeable gaslighting from him. Avoid contact with him and block him. Since he tried to force himself on you, I would also be wary of having your friend confront him alone. He's past the point of red flags. These are blinking warning lights, as he had a clear agenda with having you as a guest at their apartment. Comment 2. Hang on, you won't make eye contact with another girl's boyfriend to avoid drama, but you said yes to walking with one outside at 3 a.m. while his girlfriend was asleep? I'm really confused about your boundaries. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through this. So, after that nightmare of a trip, I decided to stay a few extra days in town to figure out how to handle the situation with Jen and Cal. I couldn't just leave things hanging like that. I spent a lot of time thinking about how to tell Jen without causing a huge blow-up. I was also scared of losing her as a friend, but I knew I couldn't keep this to myself. 2 days after the Disney trip, I finally mustered up the courage to talk to Jen. I invited her to a coffee shop we used to frequent in high school. hoping the familiar setting would make the conversation a bit easier. I started by asking her how she felt about the trip, and she seemed genuinely happy, which made what I had to say even harder. I took a deep breath and told her everything that happened with Cal. I didn't sugarcoat it, but I also tried to be as gentle as possible. Jen's face went through a range of emotions: shock, disbelief, anger, and finally, sadness. She didn't say much at first, just stared at her coffee cup. I could tell she was processing everything. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke. She thanked me for telling her and said she needed some time to think. I understood and told her I'd be there for her no matter what she decided. The next few days were tense. Jen didn't reach out and I didn't want to push her. I spent a lot of time with Tia, who was a great support through all of this. She kept reminding me that I did the right thing, even though it felt like my world was falling apart. I also had to deal with Cal's incessant texts, begging me not to ruin his relationship. I blocked his number, but the damage was already done. A week later, Jen finally called me. She sounded exhausted but resolute. She told me she confronted Cal, and he admitted to everything. They had a huge fight, and she kicked him out of their apartment. She said she needed some space from everyone, including me, to figure things out. I told her I understood and that I'd be here whenever she was ready to talk. During this time, I couldn't help but reflect on our friendship and how much it meant to me. Jen and I had been through so much together: high school drama, college stress, and now this. I remembered a time when we were both struggling with our mental health, and we made a pact to always be there for each other no matter what. That memory gave me hope that our friendship could survive this. A few days later, Jen called again. She sounded more like herself, though still a bit shaken. She apologized for needing space and thanked me again for telling her the truth. She said she realized that if I hadn't told her, she might have stayed in a toxic relationship for much longer. We talked for hours, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off both our shoulders. Jen decided to move back in with her parents for a while to get some distance from Cal and clear her head. She also started seeing a therapist to help her process everything. I was so proud of her for taking those steps. We made plans to hang out more often, just the two of us, to rebuild our friendship. As for Cal, he tried reaching out to Jen multiple times, but she blocked him on everything. She told me she realized that his behavior was a pattern and that she deserved better. It was a tough realization, but a necessary one. I could see her growing stronger every day, and it made me so happy. One evening, while we were having dinner at her parents' house, Jen opened up about her past relationships. She revealed that she had a history of dating controlling and manipulative people, and she always felt like she had to settle for less than she deserved. It was heartbreaking to hear, but it also explained a lot about why she stayed with Cal for so long. She said she was determined to break that cycle and focus on herself for a while. I also shared some of my own struggles with relationships and how I often felt like I had to prove myself to others. It was a deep emotional conversation that brought us even closer. We both realized that we had been carrying a lot of baggage from our pasts, and it was time to let go and move forward. In the end, the whole ordeal brought us closer together. Jen and I made a pact to always be honest with each other, no matter how hard it might be. We also promised to prioritize our own well-being and not let anyone else dictate our happiness. So that's where things stand now. Jen is doing much better, and our friendship is stronger than ever. We're both focusing on our own growth and supporting each other through it all.